This dapper little human right here. That's you. You're about to walk to Walmart to go shopping for a child that is obsessed with Python. It's all he talks about. All he cares about is Python. You don't know where this kid came from, but you must meet his demands. You don't know what's going to happen if you don't meet his demands. So you look at what the kid has given you, and it's a Python list. At first glance, this seems like it would work for the scenario, but there's an issue. So the issue is you don't know how many things you need. So in this scenario, using a dictionary would be better because you have a key value pair. So you can have your keys, which would be your items you want to buy, and your values, which is how many. Because right now with the list, you don't know if he just wants, one apple, one banana, one dog food, or how many of each he wants. Did this kid mean to write dog twice as well? With lists in Python, you are able to have repetitive values, but with dictionaries, you cannot. But in both cases here, since dog is uppercase, it would repeat in both a list and a dictionary. But if you had dog as lowercase, only the list would be able to store that twice. So you walk back to this kid and you ask him for a dictionary of what he wants, just so you can make it easier to look at, how many things he wants. You're scared what he's going to do if you don't shop for him. So you ask for it, but instead he just gives you a file and some code. All right, so let's take a look at the file he's giving you. So he starts off, you have define write shopping list name. So what this is going to take in is just the name of whatever the list is, whatever file you want to write to, and it's going to write to the file. So let's keep moving through it. So he gives you the list, and in this one he's actually clarified of how many of each thing he wants. So here he wants 1.5 apples, 4 bananas, 2 dogs, 0 dog food, 1 apple. So we have this list, and what we want to do here is we want to iterate through this to write it to a file. And so I'm going to use with open list name w as file. So what with open is going to do is it's going to open the file and it's going to ensure it closes once this block is unindented. So once you have any code that goes outside of this block, it's going to close the file. And so now we want to iterate through. So I'm going to do for item and shopping list, which is going to go through every single one of these. It's going to write it to this file, which doesn't exist yet. We haven't ran it, so it hasn't created the file. And so it's going to write all these items to it, and it's going to add space at the end so that it moves down a line. And then, once again, since it's unindented here, the file will close. And then you're not returning anything. You're not returning anything, so you can move on to the next function. So this function, it will do the exact same thing as the one above, but the only difference is here, we're not going to use with open. Oh, I also counted for the character count here. 80 characters. Make sure to remember that. So here, I'm going to do file is equal to open name, list name, w. So it's the same code as up here, except now you're setting file. The file object is a variable. And so you can move down again, and then exact same loop. There's no difference in what you're actually looping through. You're going to loop through the same list. You're going to write the same thing, except here, you manually write file.close, and that ensures the file closes. And then, hold up, let me change this really quick, and then I'll run it. It's named wrong. Write shopping. So now when I run this, it should write to a file. So you see shoppinglist.txt has been created over here. That's what we put in as the argument to this function. That's the list name. So it creates that file. If you look at it, it has the shopping list, and every single line has its own value separated by a comma, and then how many of that you want. So what it's actually doing when it's writing that, I'll go back really quick, is so we'll start off with shopping list. You have my shopping list. It's going to take this. It's going to add the space. It's going to write it here. It's going to take this, and this already has the comma accounted for it, so that's already been put in there. So you don't have to use split or anything there. And it's going to do the same thing. It's going to write, add a space, go down a line. And then just to show you that this other function, write shopping to, does the exact same thing, I deleted the text file. I'll run it again. You'll see it creates it, writes all the exact same stuff. Now, let's say I was writing to a file that already exists. So this has been created, write created it. Let's say I changed the original function so that the shopping list is now just high. So let's say we call to that now. So we get rid of that call. So let's say we run this now. It's going to overwrite everything that was in there. It's still the same text file, but it's overwriting everything, and that's all that's going to be there. And now, let me go back, get that original file back. So erase that, run it again, same file, calls to this, creates that file again. Or it overwrites it again, I should say. So now let's say, since there's no dog food, you don't want any dog food here. Let's say you want to add that just to be sure the dogs get fed. This code down here, what this is going to do is this is going to open it up in append mode. And what that'll do is instead of overwriting it how you saw, where if you tried to write dog food 1, all that it would write to this file would be dog food 1 on the first line. And so now when we run this, it'll call to this, write it, and then you'll see it adds dog food 1 at the end. So when you're doing write with append mode, it'll always write it to the very end. So now you have the file written and you have how many of each item you need, but the unfortunate thing is it's really painstaking to have to walk to Walmart staring at your laptop, staring at the text file. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that file, we're going to read it in this time, and we're going to read all of the information and format it into a dictionary. Alright, so here in this example, I already have all the code written out because it's a little bit more complex in my opinion as what we're doing compared to just opening a file, writing it, appending it, and reading it. So let's take a look at shopping list. So I made a change here. I made Apple all uppercase because you'll often encounter it when you're handling files where the case sensitivity won't be consistent. So you'll have maybe at the beginning Apple in all uppercase, and lower down you'll have Apple in lowercase, and you want to handle these as the same thing. I mean, they're both apples. And so what we're looking to do is we're going to convert all of this information to a dictionary with the keys being the items. So apple, banana, dog, all those would be keys. And the value pairs would be how many of each do we want. And something to note is you'll also have this when handling files is you'll have a line that you don't care for. You just want to get rid of it. So here that'd be my shopping list, which would be the title. Because if you try and handle it like the rest of these, you'll more than likely encounter an error. All right, so let's look at the code. And I'll be using the debugger so that you can visualize down here what's going on step by step. So here, we're going to start off, we're going to initialize the shopping list. So create an empty dictionary, nothing in it. And then we're using what we used earlier with the with open, and except this time we're going to put it in read mode. And so we're going to start that off. And like I mentioned earlier, you don't want to handle this first line. So what this is doing here is it's just going to skip it. It's not returning anything. It's just skipping that first line. And then we're going to have a for loop. And what this for loop is going to do is at the end of each of these lines, you don't see it, but there's something you have the backslash n over here. And when you're creating a list of all these, because that's what we're going to do first, is we're going to split it, and then we're going to add it. You don't want that backslash n being there because that'll create issues like down here. If you try converting it to a float and it has backslash n, it's not going to work. So we're going to strip it. You'll see removed the backslash n up here. And then we're going to split it by the comma. And what that's going to do is when you call to split, comma, it's going to, there's a comma space since every single one is comma space. It's going to go through every single item on that line, and it's going to split it there and turn it into a list. So here, turn it into apple 1.5. And then next, we want to turn apple into lowercase because we don't care about if it's uppercase or lowercase. We just want to handle it as the same thing. So we do that, converts it to lowercase. We're calling the split line, which is this list, 0 element, 0 index, which is apple, converting it to lower. And then next, we want to get the quantity, and we're going to do a float here since it's 1.5 because we don't want any rounding issues, none of that. And we're converting it to a float instead of a string because we're going to add it later on down here. So we convert it to a float, and you'll see it converts it to 1.5. And then if the item is in this dictionary, which it's empty right now, so it won't be, what it's going to do is it's going to check if it's in there, add it, otherwise, or add to the quantity it has. So if it's in the dictionary, we're looking at the quantity, so 1.5, and say that this was already in the dictionary, and it was initialized as, say, 3. If it's in the dictionary, we're going to look at it, add 1.5. But since it's not in the dictionary, we're just going to create it. We're just going to create it in the dictionary, and we're going to set the key to apple and the value to 1.5. Then we'll move on So do that same thing for every single one. And I'll just click through here so you can see what's changing, help you visualize it. And then here we run to the case where we have apple again. So this time it's not going to go to that else statement because it is in the dictionary. And it's going to add to the quantity that's already there. So let me go to the debugger. Let me go to shopping. So if you look at apple right now, it's 1.5. It's going to add the quantity to the value. So see it goes up to 2.5. And then same happens with dog food, which is currently 0. It'll add 1 to it. See it get updated. And then once we're done with all this, we want to exit that with statement, so unindent, and then what we're returning, we want to return the shopping list as a dictionary. So we'll call a return here, and then this is all just to visualize it, so it'll print it out down here. So you'll see that runs, and then calls up there, prints it. So it'll print out all your items. You'll have 2.5 apples, 4 bananas, 2 dogs, and 1 dog food. And then down here, I just have it so it'll iterate through it, and it'll print it line by line so that we can look at this, 2.5, 4.0, 2.0, 1.0. We can look at here, 1.5, yes, 4, yes, 2, yes, get rid of the 0, 1, we add it up here, so we'll get that 2.5, and then dog food, 1. And so that's all you want to do here is when you're reading it is go line by line. You're going to want to split it into a list and then look at each individual part and handle that, which is what's going on down here. And read differs from write and append in that you're not changing anything. You're just looking at it. So you can think of it like if someone hands you an essay and they're like, hey, just look at this. If you start writing stuff or trying to write stuff, it's not going to be happy. You're going to get some errors. But that is all you were doing here, and that will conclude everything. You have all the items you need. You have it in the dictionary.
So now you've finally done it. You can go shopping. You can look at your dictionary. You can buy your 2.5 apples, your 4 bananas, your 2 dogs, and your 1 dog food. You can go back. You can give it to this kid. You've met his demands. You'll live to see another day. Hopefully you won't run into this kid again. And yeah, that's all for today. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments or at me on Discord, and I'll be sure to answer.